Your grandma never wrote down a single recipe. She didn't measure anything. She didn't need timers or thermometers or cookbooks telling her what to do. She just cooked. And everything came out perfect every single time. That wasn't luck. That was skill. That was wisdom passed down through generations. That was a way of cooking that required you to know food intimately, by touch, by smell, by instinct. A way of cooking we've almost completely lost. Today we're talking about the old school Black cooking traditions that disappeared when our grandmothers passed away. Let's get into it. 1. Cooking by feel. No measurements, only instinct. Your grandma didn't own measuring cups, and if she did, they were somewhere in the back of a drawer collecting dust. She cooked by feel, by instinct, by a knowledge so deep it lived in her hands. You'd call her asking how to make her macaroni and cheese, desperate for measurements. "How much cheese, Grandma? How much milk?" And she'd pause, trying to translate what she knew into numbers that made no sense to her. "Just add a handful of cheese," she'd say. But your hands weren't her hands. "Season it with a pinch of this, a dash of that, until it looks right." What did "looks right" even mean? She'd describe consistency by comparison. Cook it until it looks like pancake batter. Add milk until it moves like silk. Stir until it's thick enough to coat the spoon. She'd tell you to add seasoning until the ancestors say stop, and you'd laugh. But she was serious. There was something almost mystical about the way she cooked, a connection to intuition that can't be taught through measurements. She knew by sight when the dough had enough flour, by smell when the grease was ready, by touch when the meat was done. We lost that when cooking became about following recipes exactly. We gained convenience, but we lost the artistry. We lost the connection between cook and food. We lost the ability to improvise, to adjust, to just know when something is right. Your grandma didn't need a recipe because she was the recipe. The knowledge lived in her, and it should have been passed to you. Now that intuitive cooking required tools she knew intimately. 2. Cast iron worship and the sacred skillet. Your grandma's cast iron skillet was sacred. That thing was older than you, probably older than your mama, and it had been seasoned to perfection over decades of use. She never washed it with soap. Never. That was sacrilege. After cooking, she'd wipe it out with a cloth or rinse it with hot water, then rub it down with a little grease to keep the seasoning intact. That skillet had layers of flavor built up over years, a patina that made everything taste better. Cast iron wasn't just a pan to her, it was the pan. She cooked everything in it: fried chicken, cornbread, biscuits, greens with fatback, even cakes. That skillet could go from stovetop to oven without a second thought. It distributed heat perfectly, held temperature like nothing else, and got better with every use. She knew exactly how hot to make it just by holding her hand above it. She knew which burner would heat it evenly. She knew that you never put a cold skillet on a hot burner. You heated them together, slowly, letting the iron adjust. And if you ever put her skillet in the dishwasher or scrubbed it with steel wool, she'd give you a look that could peel paint. That skillet was an heirloom, a tool perfected through time and care. It was part of the family. Now everybody's cooking with non-stick pans that last 2 years before the coating scratches off. We traded durability and flavor for convenience, and we lost the connection our grandmothers had with their tools. That cast iron skillet wasn't just cookware, it was legacy. And when Grandma passed, if nobody knew how to care for it properly, that legacy died too. Speaking of things that sat on the stove permanently. 3. The grease jar and pot liquor, nothing wasted. On your grandma's stove, there were 2 things that never moved: the grease jar and an understanding that every liquid was valuable. The grease jar, a coffee can or mason jar holding bacon grease, fatback drippings, the liquid gold left from frying chicken. She never threw that grease away, ever. It was too valuable. Frying eggs, spoonful of bacon grease. Seasoning greens, bacon grease. Making cornbread, bacon grease. That smoky, salty, rich flavor couldn't be replicated with vegetable oil. The jar sat right there on the stove, always warm, always ready, making everything taste like home. And when she cooked collard greens or turnip greens, she didn't drain them and throw away the pot liquor. That broth, full of vitamins, minerals, and flavor, was treasure. She'd save it in jars, use it as soup base to cook rice, or folks would drink it straight like tea. Old folks said it could cure a cold, settle a stomach, give you strength. Whether that was medically true or not, people believed in it. Now we use cooking spray and drain our greens down the sink. We lost the depth, the richness, the resourcefulness of using every part of what we cooked. The grease jar and saved pot liquor represented a philosophy: nothing goes to waste. And that philosophy defined everything else she did. That mindset showed in her cooking methods. 4. Low and slow, turning tough cuts tender. Your grandma could take the toughest, cheapest cut of meat and turn it into something so tender it fell apart at the touch of a fork. Her secret? Time, patience, low heat, and slow cooking. Oxtails, ham hocks, neck bones, tough pieces of pork shoulder. These weren't premium cuts. They were what was affordable, but in her hands, they became magic. She'd season them heavily, then put them in a pot with liquid and let them cook for hours. Low and slow, never rushing. As they cooked, connective tissue broke down. Collagen melted into the sauce. Meat transformed from tough to fall apart tender. The broth thickened and darkened, becoming rich with flavor. She didn't use a timer. She knew when it was done by looking, by testing with a fork, by that sixth sense that told her the meat was ready. Sometimes she'd start cooking in the morning for dinner that night. Sometimes she'd cook one day for the next. Time was the ingredient money couldn't buy. Now we want everything done in 30 minutes. We use Instant Pots and pressure cookers to force tenderness in a fraction of the time. And sure, the food gets tender, but it doesn't taste the same. It doesn't have that depth that only slow cooking can create. Your grandma understood that good food can't be rushed. Some things just need time to become what they're meant to be. Before we keep going, let me say something. If these traditions are bringing back memories of your grandma's kitchen, of watching her work, of trying to learn from her, hit that subscribe button for Black Then. We're preserving these memories, celebrating our elders' wisdom, keeping these stories alive. Drop a comment telling me what cooking tradition you remember most. Which one are you missing? I want to hear from you. Now let's keep going. That patience extended to how she taught. 5. Multi-generational kitchen teaching. Your grandma's kitchen wasn't just where she cooked. It was where she taught, where wisdom got passed down, where young hands learned by watching and doing. When she cooked, there were always others around: daughters, granddaughters, nieces. She didn't teach by lecturing. She taught by showing, by letting you try, by correcting your mistakes with a gentle word or a guiding hand. Come stir this while I season it. Watch how I fold the dough. Feel this. See how it's too sticky? That means we need more flour. She gave you tasks appropriate to your age and skill, gradually building your knowledge. There was hierarchy in that kitchen. The eldest or most skilled led. She made final decisions about seasoning, timing, when things were done. Others deferred to her judgment. You didn't challenge her methods or suggest a different way. You listened, you learned, you absorbed. The youngest might just watch and hand her things. A little older, you'd stir or snap beans. Teenagers would do actual cooking under supervision. Adults would cook alongside her, still learning even after years of practice. And while you worked, she'd talk about family, about life, about people long gone. The food prep became bonding time, storytelling time, connection time. The kitchen held more than recipes. It held history, culture, and love. Now families barely cook together. Kids eat different things than adults. Nobody has time to stand in the kitchen for hours. We lost that intergenerational transfer of knowledge, and with it, we lost the recipes, the techniques, and the stories that used to define us. That teaching included a particular approach to cooking. 6. Tasting and adjusting throughout. Your grandma tasted everything as she cooked. Constantly. She'd dip a spoon into the pot, blow on it, taste, think, and adjust. Add more salt, more pepper, more seasoning, then taste again. She wasn't following a recipe that told her exactly how much of everything to add. She was building flavor, layer by layer, tasting and adjusting until it was right. And right was something she felt, something she knew from her palate developed over decades. She'd make you taste too. Here, try this. What does it need? Teaching you to develop your own palate, your own sense of what was missing. teaching you that cooking is a conversation between the cook and the food. She understood that some dishes needed sweetness to balance salt, some needed acid to cut through richness, some needed more time, more heat, less liquid. She knew because she tasted, not because a recipe told her. She had a wooden spoon by the stove specifically for tasting. That spoon went into every pot throughout the entire cooking process. It was how she monitored progress, how she knew when something was done, how she caught mistakes before they became problems. Now we follow recipes blindly, adding exactly what they say, and only tasting at the end when it's too late to fix anything. We lost the interactive relationship with our food, the constant feedback loop that separates good cooking from great cooking. Your grandma didn't just cook food. She had a dialogue with it, and she taught it to tell her what it needed. That attention to detail showed up in specific rituals. 7. The first ones for testing and building flavor in layers. Whether it was pancakes, fried chicken, or fritters, your grandma always made sure the first one was ready before committing to the rest. The first pancake tested the heat and the batter consistency. Too thick? Add milk. Too thin? Add flour. Griddle too hot? Turn it down. The first piece of fried chicken tested the oil temperature and seasoning. That first test piece was the sacrifice, the one eaten while standing at the stove, giving her the information to make all the others perfect. She didn't expect perfection from the first try. She understood that good cooking requires testing, adjusting, learning from each batch. But beyond testing, she built flavor in layers over time. She didn't throw everything in a pot at once. She'd start with aromatics, onions, garlic, peppers, cooking them until soft and fragrant. Then meat, browned to develop rich color. Then liquid, then vegetables, then seasonings in stages, tasting throughout. She knew that some things needed to cook longer to mellow, while others needed to be added late to stay fresh. She knew that browning created different flavors than boiling, that searing meat before braising made it better, that toasting spices released their oils. Every addition was strategic, building toward a final dish that was greater than the sum of its parts. Each layer had time to develop, to meld with what came before, to create depth and complexity. Now we follow recipes that say, add everything and cook for 30 minutes, and we wonder why it tastes flat. We lost the understanding that flavor is built, not just combined. Your grandma was an architect of flavor, constructing dishes with careful attention to process and timing. That careful construction was part of a bigger weekly ritual. 8. Sunday all-day cooking and garden to table. Sunday wasn't just about church. It was about coming home and cooking for hours, preparing food that would feed the family for days. Your grandma would start cooking early and wouldn't stop until late afternoon. She was making Sunday dinner, yes, but also preparing for the week ahead. A big pot of rice, a pan of cornbread, a pot of beans, fried chicken, greens, macaroni, and cheese. Everything from scratch, in bulk, made to last. She'd manage 3 or 4 pots simultaneously, timing everything perfectly so it all finished around the same time. No timers, just her internal clock and deep knowledge of how long each dish needed. And often, that cooking started even earlier, in the garden. If she had even a small patch of land, she had vegetables growing. When she cooked, she'd go outside and pick what she needed that morning. Collard greens picked at dawn and cooking by lunch. Tomatoes pulled off the vine for dinner that same day. Green beans snapped on the back porch within hours of harvest. That connection to where food came from changed everything. She respected the vegetables because she'd nurtured them. She didn't waste them because she knew the work that went into growing them. And they tasted better, undeniably better, than anything from a store. The kitchen would be hot, steamy, filled with smells. Gospel music might be playing. Other people would drift in and out, helping or keeping her company. It was a ritual that marked the week's rhythm. Now we cook one meal at a time, often buying takeout. We lost the efficiency of batch cooking, the comfort of knowing there's always food ready at home, the connection between growing and cooking. Your grandma cooked all day Sunday so she wouldn't have to stress all week. That was wisdom we forgot. That wisdom included flexibility most of us have lost. 9. Making do, an oral recipe transmission. Your grandma didn't have everything. Sometimes she was missing an ingredient. or money was tight. But she never let that stop her from cooking. She'd substitute without thinking twice. No buttermilk? Add vinegar to regular milk. No baking powder? Use baking soda and cream of tartar. No particular herb? Use something similar or skip it and adjust other seasonings to compensate. She knew which substitutions worked and which didn't. She knew what was essential and what was optional. That ability to improvise came from deep knowledge of how ingredients interact, how flavors combine, what each component contributes. And she learned all of this not from books, but from watching. Her recipes were never written down. They lived in her head, in her hands, in her muscle memory. She passed them to you through observation, through doing, through oral instruction. You learned by standing next to her, watching her movements, listening to her occasional comments. See how I do this? Feel how this dough should be. Smell when it's ready? Brief verbal cues, expecting you to pay attention and remember. The knowledge lived in people, not in books. Recipes changed slightly with each person who learned them, adapting to their hands, their stove, their preferences. They evolved, staying alive and relevant instead of frozen on paper. But when Grandma passed without teaching someone, those recipes were gone forever. No written record, no way to recreate them exactly, just memories of taste and longing for one more meal. Now we rely completely on written recipes, on cookbooks and tutorials. We gained documentation, but lost the intimate, personal transmission of knowledge from one generation to the next. Your grandma's recipes weren't just instructions, they were relationships, memories, love made edible. And you can't write that down. That personal knowledge showed up in communal settings. 10. Communal cooking and respect for roles. When something big needed to be cooked, hog killing day, fish fries, church dinners, family reunions, the whole community came together. Cooking wasn't solitary, it was collective, social, a time for gathering. Hog killing day meant multiple families working together. Some handled meat, others made sausage, others rendered lard. Everybody had a job. Fish fries brought the neighborhood together. Church dinners saw dozens of women in the kitchen, moving around each other like choreography. These weren't just about getting cooking done. They were about community bonding, about passing down knowledge to younger generations who watched and helped, about creating shared memories. And within these communal settings, everyone had their role. Each person knew what they were responsible for, what they could make decisions about, and what required consultation. Men had their domains, the grill, the smoker, the fish fry. Women led the kitchen work, with the most experienced making final calls on seasoning and timing. This hierarchy wasn't oppressive, it was efficient. It meant someone with experience was guiding the process, and everyone else knew their place and respected those who knew more. Now we cook alone in separate kitchens. We lost the communal aspect of cooking, the social connections it created, the clarity that comes from defined roles and respect for expertise. Your grandma's generation understood that food brings people together, not just to eat, but to create. And some of them cooked in ways we can barely imagine. 11. Old fire methods we'll never see again. Your grandma or great-grandma might have grown up cooking in ways most of us can't even imagine. Before reliable ovens, before gas and electricity were common, Black families cooked over open fires and in ashes. Sweet potatoes got buried in hot ashes and roasted until the skin was charred and the inside was soft and sweet. Corn got roasted the same way. The ash added a smoky flavor nothing else could replicate. Cast iron pots hung over fires on hooks, simmering all day. The smoke flavored everything: beans, greens, stews. The heat was uneven and unpredictable, requiring constant attention and adjustment. Some folks cooked in outdoor brick ovens, heating them with wood fire and then baking in the retained heat. The timing had to be perfect. Bake when the oven was still hot, but not too hot, when the coals had burned down just right. This kind of cooking required deep knowledge of fire, of heat, of timing. It required patience and attention. And it produced flavors we simply can't recreate with modern appliances. That smoke, that ash, that wood fire, they're gone now, replaced by clean, efficient, flavorless gas and electric heat. We gained convenience and consistency, but we lost flavor and technique. We lost a whole way of cooking that connected our ancestors to their food in elemental ways. These were the cooking traditions our grandmothers mastered. From cooking by feel to building flavors and layers, from saving every drop to respecting kitchen hierarchy. These weren't just techniques, they were a whole philosophy of food. Our grandmothers were artists who worked without recipes, who cooked with every sense, who turned scarcity into abundance and simple ingredients into soul-satisfying meals. They knew things modern cooks have forgotten, and most of that knowledge died with them because we didn't pay enough attention while we had the chance. We can't fully bring these traditions back. We don't have the same circumstances, the same needs, the same daily relationship with food. But we can remember. We can honor what they knew. We can recognize that their way of cooking was valid, valuable, and in many ways superior to how we cook now. We lost the patience cooking used to require. We lost the intuition our grandmothers had. We lost the resourcefulness that made them create meals from almost nothing. We lost the communal aspect that turned cooking into bonding time. We lost the oral transmission of knowledge that made recipes personal and alive. But as long as we remember, as long as we tell these stories, as long as we acknowledge what our grandmothers could do, their wisdom isn't completely gone. It lives in our memories, in the few techniques we managed to learn, in the way we sometimes catch ourselves cooking without measuring, because something in us knows what's right. Drop a comment and tell me what you remember. What did your grandma do in the kitchen that nobody does anymore? What tradition do you wish you had paid more attention to? What would you give to have one more day in her kitchen, watching her work, learning what she knew? And if you haven't subscribed to Black Then, hit that button now. This is what we do. We preserve these memories. We honor our elders. We make sure the next generation knows what we came from. Because these traditions matter. Your grandma's knowledge mattered. And we can't let it be completely forgotten. Love, peace, and soul.